I was 27 when my brother Tyler launched his tech startup. He was 31, freshly graduated from Stanford's MBA program, and absolutely convinced he was the next Steve Jobs. Innovate Tech Solutions was going to revolutionize cloud-based project management software. He had buzzwords, a sleek pitch deck, and the kind of confidence that made investors write checks. He also had our parents' complete devotion. Tyler's company is going to change everything, Dad had announced at Sunday dinner 3 years ago. This is the kind of innovation that builds generational wealth. Mom had beamed. Our son, the entrepreneur. A CEO at 31. I'd been sitting at the end of the table as usual, eating my pasta quietly. I was working as a data analyst at a mid-sized firm, living in a modest apartment, driving a 10-year-old Honda. To them I was the boring one. The safe one. The daughter who chose stability over ambition. What they didn't know was that I'd been day trading since college. Not recklessly, carefully, methodically studying patterns and building algorithms. I'd turned my graduation gift of $5,000 into $50,000 by 23. By 25 I had $400,000. By 27 my portfolio was worth $2.3 million. I'd learned to keep it quiet. Every time I'd mentioned an investment win, Dad would say something like, lucky timing, or beginner's luck. When I'd suggested I understood financial markets, Tyler had literally patted my head and said, that's cute, but there's a difference between playing with stocks and real business strategy. So I'd stopped mentioning it. I'd kept working my boring job, kept living in my modest apartment, and kept building my portfolio in silence. When Tyler had announced he was raising a Series A round for Innovate Tech, I'd done my homework. I'd analyzed his business model, studied his competition, reviewed his technical architecture. The software was actually good, not revolutionary but solid. Well designed. Practical. With the right funding and execution, it could capture a meaningful market share. I'd wanted to invest. Not because he was my brother but because it was genuinely a good opportunity. I'd seen worse companies get $100 million valuations. Tyler's startup had real potential. But I'd known better than to approach him directly. So I'd created a shell corporation, Cascade Ventures LC, and structured it through my investment advisor, Patricia Morgan at Silver Lake Capital. Patricia managed my portfolio and understood the need for discretion. She'd set up the entity, filed all the proper paperwork, and made sure everything was completely legal and separate from my personal identity. Then Patricia had reached out to Tyler's fundraising team with an investment offer. $40 million for 28% equity. A substantial Series A that would fully fund his product development, marketing, and expansion plans for the next 3 years. Tyler had been ecstatic. A $40 million commitment from a serious venture capital entity? It was more than he'd hoped for. The deal had closed in 6 weeks. Cascade Ventures became Innovate Tech's primary investor and majority stakeholder. I became my brother's boss, essentially. And he had absolutely no idea. That was 3 years ago. Since then I'd watched from behind the corporate veil as Innovate Tech grew. I'd attended board meetings via video conference with my camera off, labeled as Patricia Morgan representing Cascade Ventures. I'd reviewed quarterly reports, approved budgets, and guided strategy decisions. All while Tyler thought he was reporting to some faceless investment firm. The company had done well. Not spectacularly but steadily. Revenue had grown from $0 to $18 million annually. They'd captured 3% of their target market. User retention was strong. The fundamentals were solid. But Tyler's ego had grown faster than his revenue. Every family dinner became a Tyler highlight reel. We just signed Microsoft as a client. Forbes mentioned us in their tech startups to watch list. I'm speaking at 3 conferences next month. Dad would beam with pride. Mom would show everyone photos on her phone. My son, the CEO. I'd smile and nod and ask polite questions while internally reviewing the financial reports that told a more complete story. Yes, Microsoft was a client. A very small pilot program worth $50,000 annually. Yes, Forbes mentioned them. In a list of 50 startups, 1 sentence. Yes, Tyler was speaking at conferences. Mostly because I'd approved the marketing budget that paid for sponsor speaking slots. None of that diminished the company's success. But it wasn't the unicorn story Tyler presented to the family. The breaking point came at Mom's birthday dinner last month. November 15th. The whole family gathered at an upscale steakhouse, Tyler's treat, he'd insisted. He'd arrived in a new Tesla Model S, wearing a Breitling watch, carrying himself with the kind of swagger that made waiters uncomfortable. The company's doing incredibly well, he'd announced during appetizers. We're preparing for our Series B round. Looking at a $200 million valuation. Dad had whistled. $200 million? Tyler, that's extraordinary. We're in talks with several major VC firms, Tyler had continued. Sequoia's interested. Andreessen Horowitz sent feelers. This is the big leagues now. I'd stayed quiet, cutting my steak because I knew the truth. We weren't preparing for a Series B. Our burn rate was too high, our growth too slow. The $200 million valuation was Tyler's fantasy, not market reality. And Sequoia and Andreessen Horowitz hadn't sent feelers. Their junior analysts had taken polite coffee meetings that went nowhere. But I'd learned not to correct him at family dinners. Then Tyler had turned to me. You're being awfully quiet. Not impressed by your big brother's success. It's impressive, I'd said simply. She doesn't really understand tech business, Mom had said apologetically. It's very complex. Actually, I'd said carefully, I've been following the cloud software market pretty closely. It's fascinating how. Right, your little stock hobby, Tyler had interrupted, grinning. How's that going? Made your first million yet? He'd said it like a joke, like the idea of me having serious money was absurd. I do okay, I'd replied. Em works hard, Dad had said in that placating tone that actually meant, let's humor her. Data analysis is a solid career. Solid, Tyler had repeated, smirking. That's one way to put it. Look, Em, there's nothing wrong with a stable job. Not everyone is cut out for the startup world. Takes a certain kind of risk tolerance, vision, aggressive mindset. You're more of a steady player. And that's fine. I'd taken a sip of water and said nothing. Then Tyler had dropped the bomb. Actually, speaking of investments, didn't you mention wanting to invest in Innovate Tech back when we were starting? I'd frozen. I might have mentioned it. Right. He'd laughed. I remember. You offered like $5,000 or something. Your investment fund? He'd used air quotes, grinning at our parents. It was more than that, I'd said quietly. Oh, sorry, was it 10,000? Either way, we appreciate the thought, but Innovate Tech isn't really set up for small personal investments. We work with professional venture capital firms, institutional investors, people who understand how series of funding works, equity structures, board governance. No offense, but it's just not the same league as playing with stocks on your lunch break. Mom had nodded sympathetically. Tyler's right, honey. His company deals with very sophisticated investors. It's not really appropriate for personal money. I understand sophisticated investing, I'd said, keeping my voice level. I'm sure you do in your way, Tyler had said patronizingly. But there's a difference between buying shares of Apple and structuring a multi-million-dollar venture capital deal. We're talking due diligence, term sheets, board seats, liquidation preferences. It's serious business. I'm aware of term sheets, I'd started. Look, Tyler had cut me off, leaning forward with that insufferable big brother expression. I love you. You're my sister. But you have to understand, I can't mix family money with business. It's messy. And honestly, I don't think you'd be comfortable with the kind of risk we're taking. This isn't safe, stable 9-to-5 money. This is aggressive growth strategy. We're burning through capital to scale fast. It's not the kind of thing someone with your conservative approach would understand. Conservative, I'd repeated. Risk-averse, he'd clarified. Which is smart. For you. You like your safe job, your safe investments, your safe life. Nothing wrong with that. But don't confuse that with what we're doing at Innovate Tech. We're playing a different game entirely. Dad had raised his glass. To Tyler and Innovate Tech. May the Series B be everything you're hoping for. Everyone had toasted. I'd raised my glass mechanically, my mind racing. I'd sat through 3 years of this. 3 years of being patronized, dismissed, treated like I couldn't understand basic business concepts. While I literally owned 28% of his company. While I literally controlled his funding. While I literally sat on his board under a corporate pseudonym. The rage had been quiet but absolute. After dinner, I'd gone home to my modest apartment and opened my laptop. I'd pulled up the Cascade Ventures documentation. The shareholder agreement. The funding terms. The liquidation clauses. Then I'd called Patricia. Patricia? It's Emily. I need to schedule a call with Tyler Chin, CEO of Innovate Tech. Board business. Of course. What's the agenda? I'd paused, thinking about 3 years of condescension. 3 years of being told I didn't understand business while I funded his entire operation. 3 years of watching him take credit for success that my money had built. Investment review, I'd said. I'm considering liquidating our position. There had been a long silence on the phone. Emily, you're the majority stakeholder. If Cascade pulls out, Innovate Tech loses its primary funding source. They'd have maybe 4 months of runway before they'd need to shut down or find emergency financing. I'm aware. Are you sure about this? I'd thought about Tyler's smirk. His patronizing tone. His absolute certainty that I was too small, too safe, too boring to play in his world. Schedule the call, I'd said. 2 days later, Tyler had been sitting in Innovate Tech's conference room for his quarterly board meeting. I'd watched via the video link, my camera off as usual, as Patricia had joined the call. Good morning, Mr. Chin, Patricia had said professionally. Thank you for joining us. I'm afraid we have some concerning matters to discuss regarding Cascade Ventures' investment in Innovate Tech. Tyler had looked confused. Concerning? I thought Q3 results were solid. Revenues up 12% year-over-year. We're hitting our milestones. Your financial performance is acceptable, Patricia had interrupted. However, Cascade Ventures is conducting a portfolio review, and we have concerns about the company's trajectory and leadership's strategic judgment. Leadership's judgment? Tyler's expression had shifted from confusion to defensive. What are you talking about? We're executing exactly according to plan. We're on track for Series B discussions next quarter. Mr. Chin, we need to be frank. Your Series B projections are unrealistic. Your $200 million valuation target isn't supported by your current metrics. Your burn rate is concerning. And frankly, we have questions about capital allocation decisions. Tyler had gone red. What decisions? We've been completely transparent. Every expenditure is documented. Your Tesla. Your executive compensation package. The conference sponsorships. The premium office space. These are not efficient uses of venture capital during a growth phase. Those are standard startup CEO expenses. Every tech founder is not funded by Cascade Ventures, Patricia had said coolly. We have specific expectations about capital discipline. Expectations that we feel are not being met. I'd watched Tyler's face cycle through emotions. Confusion, anger, fear. He'd built his entire identity around being a successful startup CEO. The idea that his primary investor was unhappy had clearly never occurred to him. Okay, Tyler had said, forcing calm. Hey. If there are concerns, let's address them. We can adjust spending. We can revise projections. What do you need from us? We need to discuss whether Cascade Ventures wishes to maintain our investment position, Patricia had said. The silence had been deafening. Maintain? You mean you're considering pulling out? We're evaluating all options, including liquidation of our equity stake. You can't. That would destroy the company. We're dependent on your funding for operations. If you pull $40 million out. We're aware of the implications, Mr. Chin, which is why we're having this conversation. We need assurance that leadership is taking our investment seriously. I am taking it seriously. This company is my life. Everything I've built. His phone had rung. He'd glanced at it, irritated. I need to take this. It's my bank. Please do, Patricia had said. Tyler had answered, putting it on speaker. This is Tyler Chin. Mr. Chin, this is David Reynolds from Pacific Trust Bank. I'm calling about your business line of credit. We've been notified of potential changes in your company's capital structure, and we need to discuss your credit terms immediately. Tyler had gone pale. Changes? What changes? Our covenants require notification of any material changes in investor composition. We've received information suggesting your primary investor may be withdrawing. Is this accurate? We're just having discussions. Mr. Chin, if your Series A investor liquidates their position, your credit line will be immediately callable. That's $8 million you'd need to repay within 30 days. Tyler had looked at the video screen where Patricia's name was displayed, his expression panicked. This is a misunderstanding. Patricia, Ms. Morgan, we can work this out. We'll need to see significant changes, Mr. Chin, Patricia had said firmly. Another phone had started ringing. Tyler's cell this time. He'd looked at the screen, his hand shaking slightly. It's our CFO. Answer it, Patricia had said. Tyler had switched calls. Brian? What's wrong? Tyler, I'm getting calls from 2 of our major clients. They're asking about company stability. Someone told them our primary investor might be pulling out. Microsoft is threatening to pause our contract pending clarification. What the hell is going on? How did they even know? Word travels fast in tech circles. Is it true? Is Cascade Ventures withdrawing? Tyler had looked like he might be sick. We're having discussions. Strategic realignment discussions. Strategic realignment? Tyler, if we lose our primary funding, we're done. We have 4 months of runway, maybe less. We can't raise emergency Series B in that time. Everyone will know we're desperate. We'll get terrible terms or no terms at all. I know that. Tyler had snapped. I'm handling it. He'd ended the call and stared at the video screen. Patricia. Ms. Morgan. Please. Let's talk about this rationally. What do you need? What will it take to keep Cascade invested? I'd unmuted my microphone for the first time in 3 years of board meetings. Hello, Tyler. His face had gone blank. Who? It's Emily. I'd watched him process the voice. Confusion. Recognition. Complete disbelief. Why are you on this call? Because I'm Cascade Ventures, I'd said simply. I'm your primary investor. I own 28% of your company. I've owned it for 3 years. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had frozen. That's not possible, Tyler had finally said. Cascade is a venture capital firm. A real VC firm with institutional backing. Cascade is a shell corporation I created through my investment advisor. It's my money, Tyler. All $40 million of it. Mine. You don't have $40 million. I have $47 million currently. I had $52 million when I invested in you. I've made about $5 million profit on other investments since then, and your company's equity value has appreciated roughly $7 million. So my Innovate Tech stake is now worth about $47 million total. He'd stared at the screen like I was speaking another language. That's impossible. You work data analysis. You live in that tiny apartment. You drive a 10-year-old Honda, yes. Because I prefer to invest my money rather than spend it on Teslas and Breitling watches. How did you? This doesn't make sense. I've been trading since college, Tyler. I built my portfolio from $5,000 to $2.3 million by the time you launched Innovate Tech. When you needed series of funding, I saw a good investment opportunity. So I created Cascade, funded your company, and took a board seat. I've been Patricia Morgan representing Cascade Ventures at every quarterly meeting for 3 years. Patricia had unmuted. I'm the actual Patricia Morgan, Mr. Chin. Emily's investment advisor. I've been representing her interests as requested. Everything was completely legal and properly documented. Tyler had sunk into his chair. You've been on the board? You've been my primary investor this entire time. Yes. While we at family dinners. His face had shifted from shock to horror as he'd replayed 3 years of conversations. Every dismissive comment. Every patronizing lecture about business. Every time he'd explained basic concepts to me like I was a child. While you told me I didn't understand sophisticated investing, I'd finished. While you laughed about my pocket change. While you explained that I was too risk-averse for serious business. Yes. During all of that. Oh my God. The Series B discussions you've been bragging about, those are going nowhere, Tyler. Your projections are inflated. Your valuation expectations are unrealistic. And your spending habits are concerning to any serious investor. The Tesla was purchased with venture capital meant for product development. The watch was bought the same month you cut the customer service team's training budget. The premium office space costs more annually than 3 junior developers' salaries. You've been spending my money like it's unlimited while treating me like I'm too stupid to understand basic finance. His face had gone from pale to red. I didn't know. That doesn't make it better, Tyler. It makes it worse. You treated me that way because you genuinely believed I was beneath you financially and intellectually. The fact that I was secretly funding your entire operation the whole time just proves how wrong you were. Another call had come through on Tyler's phone. He'd ignored it. What do you want? He'd asked quietly. Are you really going to liquidate? Destroy the company? I'd leaned back in my chair, considering. 3 years of condescension. 3 years of family dinners where I was the boring, safe, unsuccessful daughter while he was the visionary entrepreneur. 3 years of being patronized by someone whose company only existed because of my money. I'm not going to destroy anything, I'd said finally. Despite what you think of me, I'm actually a pretty good investor. I don't make emotional decisions with $47 million positions. Then what? But things are going to change. First, your spending gets audited. Every personal expense charged to the company gets reviewed. The Tesla? You're buying that out personally or returning it. The watch? Personal expense. The conference sponsorships that are really just vanity-speaking slots? Cut entirely. Tyler had nodded frantically. Done. Absolutely. Second, your compensation package gets restructured. You're currently paying yourself $280,000 annually plus equity. That's dropping to $180,000 until revenue hits $25 million. You want startup founder money? Hit startup founder metrics. Hey. Yes. Third, you're getting a real SEO. Someone with operational experience who can rein in your spending and implement actual financial controls. I'm approving the hire and the search firm. You don't get veto power. Understood. Fourth, the $200 million Series B fantasy ends now. We're going to build a sustainable business with realistic projections. If that means slower growth, fine. I'd rather own 28% of a company worth $100 million than 28% of one worth zero because you burned through capital chasing unicorn valuations. Right. That makes sense. And fifth, I'd said, my voice hardening, you're going to tell our parents the truth. All of it. That I'm your primary investor. That I've funded your company from the beginning. That your success is built on my capital, not just your vision. And you're going to do it at this Sunday's dinner. In front of everyone. Tyler had closed his eyes. And that's, do we have to? Those are my terms, I'd said flatly. Accept them or I liquidate my position tomorrow and you can explain to Mom and Dad why your company collapsed. I accept, he'd said immediately. All of it. I accept. Good. Patricia will send you the updated agreements. Sign them by end of day Friday. I will. Can I just say, I'm sorry. I was an ass. I was completely wrong about you. Yes, I'd agreed. You were. But you can start making it right on Sunday. I'd ended the call and sat in my apartment, hands shaking slightly with adrenaline. 3 years of hidden identity revealed in 15 minutes. 3 years of secret control brought into the light. Sunday dinner was at Dad's house. I'd arrived early, settling into my usual spot at the end of the table. Tyler had come in looking like he might throw up, which gave me a certain satisfaction. Mom had started her usual routine. Tyler, honey, how's the company? Any news on that Series B? Tyler had glanced at me. I'd raised my eyebrows slightly. Actually, Mom, Dad, everyone, I need to tell you something. About the company. About how it got funded. Dad had perked up. Oh. New investor coming in. No. Old investor. Original investor, actually. Tyler had taken a deep breath. 3 years ago when I was raising my Series A, I got a $40 million commitment from a venture capital entity called Cascade Ventures. That's been our primary funding source since launch. It's what built the company. We know that, honey, Mom had said. What you don't know is who Cascade Ventures is. He'd looked directly at me. It's Emily. Em created Cascade as a shell corporation and invested her own money. $40 million of her own money. She owns 28% of Innovate Tech. She's been on the board of directors for 3 years. She's not just my sister. She's my boss. The table had gone completely silent. Dad had looked at me. Emily, you have $40 million. I have about $47 million currently, I'd corrected. My portfolio's done well. But you work as a data analyst. I work as a data analyst because I like the work and it's flexible, I'd said. But I've been investing since college. Day trading, algorithmic trading, growth stocks, some crypto early on. I've built the portfolio over time. Mom had seemed unable to process this. You never said anything. I tried to. Remember when I mentioned making $50,000 on a tech stock in my 20s? Dad said it was beginner's luck. When I suggested I understood financial markets, Tyler patted my head and called it cute. Tyler had flinched. So I stopped mentioning it, I'd continued. I kept building my portfolio quietly. And when Tyler needed series of funding, I saw a good investment opportunity. So I funded it. Anonymously. Through a shell corporation. Because I knew if I offered directly, you'd all dismiss it as my little investment hobby, with my pocket change. Pocket change, Tyler had repeated hollowly. That's exactly what I called it. At Mom's birthday dinner. Your pocket change. You did, I'd agreed. Right before you explained that I didn't understand sophisticated investing or term sheets or how serious business works. While I literally owned 28% of your company and had been on your board for 3 years. The table had erupted. Dad asking questions about my portfolio strategy. Mom demanding to know why I'd hidden this. My aunt asking if I was actually rich. Tyler sitting silently, staring at his plate. Why didn't you just tell us? Dad had finally asked. Because you wouldn't have believed me, I'd said simply. Or you would have thought I was exaggerating or gotten lucky or somehow didn't really earn it. You're barely believing me now, and Tyler's here confirming every word. I would have believed you, Dad had protested weakly. Dad, you called me safely employed last Christmas. Like it was a gentle criticism. Tyler literally said 2 weeks ago that I'm too risk-averse for serious business. You've all spent years treating me like I'm playing with monopoly money while Tyler builds a real company. Except Tyler's real company only exists because of my monopoly money. Tyler had finally spoken. She's right. Everything she's saying is right. I've been an arrogant ass. We all have. Isn't just successful. She's more successful than me. Than any of us. She's brilliant at this. And we never even noticed because we were too busy assuming she was exactly what she appeared to be on the surface. I don't understand, Mom had said. Why live in that small apartment? Why drive that old car? If you have this kind of money. Because I'm investing it, I'd explained. Every dollar I don't spend on a fancy car is a dollar that compounds in the market. Warren Buffett still lives in the house he bought in 1958. That's not poverty. That's strategy. Dad had looked at me differently. Not dismissively. Not placatingly. But with actual respect. Maybe for the first time in my adult life. Emily, he'd said slowly, I owe you an apology. A real one. I've underestimated you significantly. We all have, Tyler had added. And I'm sorry. For everything. Every dismissive comment. Every patronizing explanation. Every time I made you feel small. You've been keeping my company alive, and I've been treating you like you couldn't understand a balance sheet. You really couldn't? I'd asked pointedly. He'd smiled slightly. Apparently not as well as you do. The conversation had shifted then. Dad asking about investment strategies. Mom wanting to know how I'd learned to trade. Everyone suddenly very interested in my boring career and safe choices and modest lifestyle. The power dynamic had shifted completely. Not just with Tyler but with the entire family. I wasn't the overlooked youngest anymore. I was the secret genius who'd funded her brother's entire empire while he patronized her. Later, Tyler had caught me in the kitchen. For real, are we okay? The company, I mean. You're not actually going to pull funding, right? Not if you follow the new terms, I'd said. Cut the wasteful spending, hire the COO, build sustainably. Do that and we'll be fine. I will. I promise. He paused. I really am sorry. I was so focused on being the successful one, I never considered that you already were. I know, I'd said. But Tyler, don't tell me you understand business better than I do anymore. I literally own your business. He'd laughed, but it was humble. Yeah. I got that message pretty clearly. The story had made it into the family lore. The time Emily revealed she was secretly rich and had been funding Tyler's company the whole time. It was told at every gathering, every holiday, every family event. Sometimes with embarrassment. Sometimes with pride. Always with a certain sense of disbelief. Tyler's company had stabilized. With proper financial controls, realistic projections and disciplined spending, Innovate Tech had actually become more attractive to investors. 6 months later, they'd successfully closed a Series B at a $120 million valuation. Not the $200 million fantasy Tyler had wanted, but a realistic number backed by solid metrics. My 28% stake was now worth approximately $34 million, a decent return on my original $40 million investment when combined with the dividend distributions I'd received. Not spectacular but solid. Sustainable. And I was no longer the invisible family member. I was Emily Chin, the data analyst who turned $5,000 into $50 million and funded her brother's tech company without him knowing. At Christmas dinner this year, Tyler had stood up with his wine glass. "I want to make a toast," he'd said. "Tim. My sister, my primary investor and the smartest person in this family. Who taught me that success doesn't always look like what you expect, and that the quietest person in the room might be the most powerful." Everyone had raised their glasses. I'd smiled, staying seated at the end of the table. My choice now, not a relegation. "To M," they'd chorused. I'd taken a sip of wine and thought about 3 years of secret board meetings. 3 years of funding my brother's dream while he dismissed mine. 3 years of being underestimated while I held all the power. "To family," I'd said quietly. "May we all learn to look a little deeper." Tyler had met my eyes across the table and nodded. A real acknowledgement. Real respect. It had only taken $40 million and a near collapse of his company to get there. But I suppose some lessons were expensive.